My name is Lena, I'm 42, and I know I should never admit this out loud. Not to anyone, not even in my own head, but it's been circling like a hawk above every quiet moment of my life, and lately, it won't let me sleep. My stepson looked at me differently one afternoon. Not in the usual distracted way boys his age glance at their stepmothers like their background noise. No, this was different, quiet, curious, like he saw something new. And I liked it. Too much. That day, the air felt too thick for spring. The windows were open, the trees outside gently folding into one another, and I had just bent to pick up the book I'd dropped. I saw his eyes linger, not in some vulgar way. Not in a way that invited anything. Just a pause. One extra second. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt seen. God, even saying that makes me feel pathetic. But when you've spent over a decade slowly becoming invisible to the one person who used to undress you with a single glance, your body starts craving any spark of recognition. Even the wrong kind. It wasn't always like this. I met David, my husband, when I was 31. He was 40, newly widowed, with a 6-year-old boy and guilt permanently etched into the corners of his mouth. I used to love that about him, the way he held things in. I felt like the only person he let inside. And when he did, it was like being chosen. Our early days were clumsy but sweet. He'd leave notes tucked into my pockets, kiss the back of my shoulder while I washed dishes, whisper things in my ear that made me blush like I was still in my 20s. He held me like I was delicate, even when I tried to pretend I wasn't. And for a while, that was enough. That intimacy carried us. But love is not a fire, it doesn't crackle endlessly without tending. It's a garden. If you don't water it, something still grows, but it's not always what you want. Lately, when David kisses me, it's like he's brushing something off my cheek. Absent. Kind. Distant. When he holds me in bed, it feels like a ritual we both perform just so we don't have to name what's missing. We still have sex, mechanical, quiet, timed between the dog falling asleep and the garage door closing after Jordan comes home. But it's like we're imitating ourselves. I touch him and feel a wall of silence. He touches me and expects a response that doesn't rise. There was a moment, just last week, actually, when I went to hug him after dinner. I was tired and trying not to show it. He was scrolling his phone. I slid my arms around his waist and leaned in, cheek against his back. He flinched. Not enough to be rude, but enough to notice. He let me stay there, but he didn't turn around. And that's when it really hit me. I am in this marriage alone. I am touching a man who doesn't feel me anymore. Sleeping beside someone who wouldn't notice if I cried softly enough. Loving someone who, perhaps, loves me out of memory, not presence. It was quiet after dinner that night. Jordan, my stepson, was in the living room, flipping through a sketchpad. He's 17 now. All long limbs and that teenage energy that vibrates even in stillness. He asked me if I wanted to see his art. I smiled and sat beside him, genuinely wanting to. It had been ages since he'd even asked for my attention like that. He showed me a page he'd sketched of me from memory. Me, in the garden, hair loose, watering the lavender bushes in a wide-brimmed hat. I don't know, he said, shrugging, you just looked peaceful. It was innocent. It should have felt normal. But when I looked at him and saw the way his eyes softened, not the way a boy looks at his mother, but like I mattered, I felt something warm crack open in me. And the worst part? I let it sit there. I let myself feel wanted. Even if just for a second. Even if it was wildly, impossibly wrong. Because when someone looks at you like you exist, after years of fading into wallpaper, the recognition is intoxicating. And now I can't stop thinking about that moment. Not because of what it might mean. But because it reminded me of what I've lost. David thinks touch is love. He always has. It's one of the first things I noticed about him when we started dating, how he'd brush his hand across the small of my back when we walked into a room, how he'd squeeze my thigh while driving, tug gently at my fingers when we sat on the couch. It used to light me up. His touch made me feel chosen. Needed. But lately, it just feels like pressure. He's a high school principal, strict, respected, always composed. At home, though, he's quieter. There's a sharpness to him now, an exhaustion that never seems to lift. I know the job drains him, teenagers, parents, burnt-out teachers, but I used to be the place where he exhaled. Now, it's like I'm just another thing he manages. He touches me, sure. His hand on my hip while I'm cooking, a kiss on the back of my neck when I'm trying to send an email, a sleepy grab under the sheets like a man checking his nightstand for keys. But he doesn't see me. Not really. Tonight, it happened again. The kind of night that would seem normal from the outside. But that's how it goes, these small, domestic moments where everything should feel safe, but instead I'm gasping for air and no one notices. We were watching a movie. I was curled into the corner of the couch with my knees tucked up. David reached over and pulled my legs into his lap, started massaging my calf. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to hurt his feelings. But the truth is, I wasn't in my body enough to want to be touched. I was still somewhere inside myself, replaying the look Jordan gave me earlier that week. Not the look itself, but the warmth it gave me. The contrast. I nodded at the screen like I was watching, but I wasn't. I was thinking about how David never asks me how I'm doing. He doesn't ask about the writing classes I stopped going to. He didn't notice when I stopped wearing perfume. I could change my hair completely and he'd just pat my hip and say looks nice. His hand moved up my thigh. I stiffened. He paused. What? He asked, trying to keep his tone light, but I heard the flicker of annoyance. I'm just tired, I said quickly. Long day. He sighed. Not loud, but sharp. Right. Of course. It felt like a door slamming shut between us. I wanted to scream, it's not about the sex. It's that you only reach for me when you want it. You don't reach for my mind. Or my heart. Or ask why I cry in the shower. But instead, I pulled a blanket over my lap and faked a yawn. David stood and walked into the kitchen. I heard the tap run, the fridge open, the sound of ice in a glass. He didn't come back. Later that night, in bed, he tried again. He kissed my shoulder, gently, softly. I could tell he was trying. I could feel the effort. But the kiss landed wrong, like someone pressing their lips to a memory, not a person. I miss how we used to be, he whispered into the darkness. I swallowed hard. Yeah. Me too. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, and I let him. But I stayed still. My body didn't melt into his the way it used to. I didn't feel held, I felt held onto. I closed my eyes and thought about Jordan again. The sketch. The way he noticed me in the garden. How he looked at me like I was something worth observing, not just touching. It scared me, the way I wanted to hold on to that feeling. Not because I wanted something inappropriate. But because I craved something impossible, to feel recognized again. And that craving was beginning to whisper louder than my guilt. David came home early today. That used to mean something. When we first moved into this house, me, him, and a quiet little Jordan who barely looked up from his Lego sets, it meant wine and dancing barefoot in the kitchen. It meant something special. Now, it just means he forgot a meeting and brought the weight of his school office home with him. Still, he was trying. I could see it in the way he smiled at me, too wide. A peace offering. Thought I'd make your favorite tonight, he said, already pulling vegetables out of the fridge. Mushroom risotto. Remember how we used to? Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. That sounds great. I busied myself with setting the table, folding napkins too neatly, pouring water I wouldn't drink. David chopped with exaggerated flair, cracking jokes about the students who tried to skip detention. I laughed politely, nodding in the right places. But I wasn't there. I was outside myself. Watching. Listening. Pretending. When we sat to eat, he poured wine into the glasses we hadn't used in months. To us, he said, lifting his glass. I lifted mine too, but the words didn't come. Later, as we were cleaning up, he came behind me, slid his arms around my waist. His breath warmed the back of my neck. I missed this, he murmured, kissing my shoulder. Missed you. I didn't respond. I wanted to. I wanted to be able to. But something in me just froze, like my body couldn't keep pretending. He turned me around gently, looked me in the eyes. What's going on with you lately? Nothing, I said too quickly. Just tired. Lena, he ran his hands along my arms, then cupped my face. I feel like you're always somewhere else. That hit too close. I looked down at his chest, then past him, then back at him. I don't know, I whispered. I feel like I'm vanishing. He blinked. You're not vanishing. You're right here with me. And then he kissed me. It wasn't rough or demanding. It wasn't even hungry. It was slow, deliberate, with the intention of reminding me that I was his. And maybe 10 years ago, that kiss would have reached something deep inside me. But now? Now it just felt hollow. Like kissing through glass. I kissed him back, because I didn't want to hurt him. Because I remembered how much I used to love him. Because I should have wanted it. But inside, my thoughts were racing. Does he even know me anymore? Is this about connection or just ritual? Why can't I feel it? Why can't I fake it better? His hand slipped to my hips, then one playfully swatted my backside. Hey, he said with a smirk. Still got it. I flinched. Not dramatically. Just enough that he noticed. The smile on his face fell. What was that? He asked quietly. Nothing, I muttered, stepping back. I have laundry in the dryer. I turned before he could ask anything else, but I could feel his eyes on me the whole way down the hall. In the bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my reflection in the mirror. I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. She looked tired. Lost. A little angry. There was a time I used to light up at his touch. Now I overthink every time his hand lands on me. Every kiss feels like a test I'm failing. I'm trying to hold on, but the more he reaches for my body, the more my soul slips through the cracks. And I don't know how to say it to him without shattering us completely. I buried my face in my hands and thought, for the 100th time that week, why does everything have to turn into sex? We were out at a restaurant. Nothing fancy, just the Italian place near the park with the exposed brick and too bright lighting. We used to go there on Friday nights, back when Jordan was little and we still held hands across the table. David had made the reservation himself. That was his version of romance these days. Book something. Buy something. Touch something. He tried. I knew he did. He wore the navy sweater I liked. I wore lipstick I hadn't touched in 6 months. You look beautiful, he said when I slid into the booth. Thanks, I said, even though it didn't land. I felt like a vase on display. We ordered wine. Breadsticks. He told me about a teacher who got caught vaping in the staff bathroom. I nodded, laughed politely. My laugh sounded wrong in my own ears. Then he reached across the table, took my hand, and said, I've been thinking we should take a weekend trip. Just the two of us. Like old times. I froze. The way he said like old times hit something raw in me. Lena, he said, smiling. What do you think? I blinked hard. A trip. Yeah. Something small. Cabin maybe. You love the woods. I did, I said quietly. He tilted his head. What does that mean? I pulled my hand back, slowly. The tightness in my chest started to rise like steam under pressure. I mean, I did love the woods. I used to love a lot of things. Before I started disappearing. He furrowed his brow. What are you talking about? I'm talking about us, David. My voice cracked. I'm talking about the fact that I feel like a ghost in this marriage. He leaned forward, his voice still low but clipped. Lena, can we not do this here? No, I said, louder than I meant to. Because we never do it anywhere. People at the next table glanced over. I didn't care. I try to tell you I'm not okay, and you book a cabin. I try to reach for something real, and you touch my body like that's supposed to fix everything. I'm not a door you can unlock with sex. David sat back, stunned. His mouth parted like he wanted to speak, but didn't know where to start. I'm trying, he said after a long pause. I'm trying to show you I still love you. But you don't see me. My voice dropped to a whisper, and I felt tears spring hot and fast at the corners of my eyes. You touch me, but you don't ask how I am. You don't see that I'm slowly disappearing. He looked down at the table, hands folded. Silent. And that silence broke something in me. I grabbed my purse and stood. I need some air. I sat in the car for 20 minutes, windows rolled down, heart thudding like a warning bell. The guilt came fast. You humiliated him. You made a scene. He was trying. But the deeper truth, the one I couldn't say out loud, was this: I wasn't just angry at David. I was angry at myself. Because I let it get this far. Because I'd been waiting for him to read my silence instead of speaking my pain. Because part of me had started to light up from a teenager noticing I existed, something so innocent, so fleeting, but so emotionally charged that it made everything with David feel colder by comparison. When your stepson looks at you with more tenderness than your husband, something is deeply wrong. And yet I felt sick. Ashamed. Not because Jordan had done anything wrong, but because I had noticed it. Had let myself absorb it like warmth on frozen skin. I rested my head against the steering wheel and closed my eyes. What the hell is happening to me? It's been 16 days since that night at the restaurant. We haven't spoken about it. Not once. There's no dramatic silence, no slammed doors or pointed sighs. Just distance. A kind of invisible fog between us. We move through the same rooms, eat the same meals, sleep in the same bed, but we don't meet anymore. We orbit one another like strangers in a shared waiting room. In the mornings, David leaves early. The coffee machine hisses in the dark kitchen before sunrise, and by the time I'm up, his travel mug is already gone. In the evenings, he watches the news in the living room while I fold laundry in the bedroom. He doesn't reach for me. I don't reach for him. Neither of us says what we're thinking, probably because we already know. But the silence hurts. I catch myself staring at the empty side of the couch, remembering how his arm used to stretch behind my shoulders, how I used to tuck myself into him without thinking. Now I sit curled in a blanket, pretending the warmth is enough. It's not. Last night, I found him in the garage, just sitting in his old recliner with a beer, staring at nothing. He looked small. Like someone holding something heavy with both hands and no place to put it down. Hey, I said, leaning in the doorway. He glanced up. Hey. That was it. I wanted to walk in, sit beside him, apologize. But I didn't know where to start. Every word felt too late, or too fake. So I went back inside. My heart ached the way it does when you see someone you love drowning and realize you're the one who let the water in. He's not a villain. David has loved me the only way he knows how. He works hard. He pays attention to things that need fixing. He kisses my forehead when I'm half asleep. He never flirts with anyone else, never stops trying to be the good man. But somewhere along the way, we lost the S between our efforts. He clings to touch like it's a language I still speak, but I'm no longer fluent in it. I need softness. Words. Curiosity. And instead, I've been surviving on habit and guilt and the ache of not being asked what I want anymore. And now I miss him. Not just the man he was, but the space he took up in my life. I miss how it felt to belong somewhere. I even miss his annoying things, how he hums off-key while brushing his teeth, how he leaves socks in the dryer for days and insists he's air-drying them. I miss the version of us where I didn't flinch when he touched me. But I also can't deny this truth, I don't know how to love him if I keep disappearing to do it. Today, I stood outside the door to his office, just listening. I could hear him typing. Sighing. Humming softly under his breath. I held my hand up to knock and couldn't. Not yet. Tonight, Jordan came home late from study group. He nodded at me, said hey, and walked to the fridge. He was wearing earbuds and didn't notice the way I was watching him, just the quiet confidence in his walk, the softness in his expression. He was humming the same song David had been humming hours earlier. And for a second, everything felt connected and far away at once. I turned off the kitchen light and stood in the dark for a long time. Do I want to try again? Can I? I don't know yet. But I can't keep standing still. Tomorrow, I'll decide. It's been 16 days since that night at the restaurant. We haven't spoken about it. Not once. There's no dramatic silence, no slammed doors or pointed sighs. Just distance. A kind of invisible fog between us. We move through the same rooms, eat the same meals, sleep in the same bed, but we don't meet anymore. We orbit one another like strangers in a shared waiting room. In the mornings, David leaves early. The coffee machine hisses in the dark kitchen before sunrise, and by the time I'm up, his travel mug is already gone. In the evenings, he watches the news in the living room while I fold laundry in the bedroom. He doesn't reach for me. I don't reach for him. Neither of us says what we're thinking, probably because we already know. But the silence hurts. I catch myself staring at the empty side of the couch, remembering how his arm used to stretch behind my shoulders, how I used to tuck myself into him without thinking. Now I sit curled in a blanket, pretending the warmth is enough. It's not. Last night, I found him in the garage, just sitting in his old recliner with a beer, staring at nothing. He looked small. Like someone holding something heavy with both hands and no place to put it down. Hey, I said, leaning in the doorway. He glanced up. Hey. That was it. I wanted to walk in, sit beside him, apologize. But I didn't know where to start. Every word felt too late, or too fake. So I went back inside. My heart ached the way it does when you see someone you love drowning and realize you're the one who let the water in. He's not a villain. David has loved me the only way he knows how. He works hard. He pays attention to things that need fixing. He kisses my forehead when I'm half asleep. He never flirts with anyone else, never stops trying to be the good man. But somewhere along the way, we lost the S between our efforts. He clings to touch like it's a language I still speak, but I'm no longer fluent in it. I need softness. Words. Curiosity. And instead, I've been surviving on habit and guilt and the ache of not being asked what I want anymore. And now I miss him. Not just the man he was, but the space he took up in my life. I miss how it felt to belong somewhere. I even miss his annoying things, how he hums off-key while brushing his teeth, How he leaves socks in the dryer for days and insists he's air drying them. I miss the version of us where I didn't flinch when he touched me. But I also can't deny this truth: I don't know how to love him if I keep disappearing to do it. Today, I stood outside the door to his office, just listening. I could hear him typing. Sighing. Humming softly under his breath. I held my hand up to knock and couldn't. Not yet. Tonight, Jordan came home late from study group. He nodded at me, said hey, and walked to the fridge. He was wearing earbuds and didn't notice the way I was watching him, just the quiet confidence in his walk, the softness in his expression. He was humming the same song David had been humming hours earlier. And for a second, everything felt connected and far away at once. I turned off the kitchen light and stood in the dark for a long time. Do I want to try again? Can I? I don't know yet. But I can't keep standing still. Tomorrow, I'll decide. I decided to try. Not because I suddenly felt brave or ready, but because not trying felt worse. The silence was starting to eat through the walls of this house, and I didn't want to live in ruins. David was in the garden, crouched beside the lavender bushes I stopped tending months ago. It was where I used to spend hours, barefoot, lost in the smell of earth and quiet. It felt strange seeing him there, hands in the soil, like he was trying to understand something I'd once loved. I never knew what to do with these, he said without looking up. I sat on the porch steps and pulled my knees in. You have to be gentle with them. Too much water and they rot. He nodded, fingers brushing dirt off his palms. Kind of like us, huh? The way he said it, half a joke, half truth, unlocked something between us. For the first time in weeks, I looked directly at him. And he didn't look away. I'm sorry, I said. For what I said at dinner. For letting it all pile up. He sat beside me, knees stiff, movements slower than they used to be. You weren't wrong, he said. I just didn't know you were hurting like that. I didn't let you see it. I didn't ask. The quiet between us wasn't heavy this time. It felt like breathing room. I'd been angry, I admitted. Lonely. Like I'd been fading. And I started noticing when someone else did see me. Even if it was just for a second. His brow furrowed, but he didn't ask who. Maybe he already knew. Maybe he didn't want to. Did you do anything? He asked, voice low. No, I said quickly. But I thought about it. That scares me. He nodded slowly. That scares me too. I leaned into him then, not all the way, just enough to feel his shoulder brush mine. He didn't move. Can we fix it? I asked. I don't know, he whispered. But I want to try. If you do. We sat there, side by side in the dirt and fading light, like two people rebuilding something from scattered pieces. Later, in bed, he didn't reach for me. He just lay beside me, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. I turned toward him, placed a hand over his, and for the first time in a long time, he squeezed back, quiet and steady. No words. No kiss. Just pressure. Like saying, I'm still here. Are you? I've been thinking a lot about moments lately. How they sneak up on you. How they don't ask for permission. How 1 second can change the texture of everything that came before it. That afternoon when Jordan looked at me like I was someone worth seeing, not just someone who kept the fridge full or folded his hoodies, was one of those moments. And I still think about it. Not because I wanted something from him. But because I remembered what it felt like to be noticed. Not needed, not relied on, not tolerated, seen. I know how that sounds. I know what you're probably thinking. I've thought it all too, every shameful, angry, confused thing a woman can think about herself. I've sat in the guilt. I've tried to scrub it off. It doesn't go anywhere. But if I've learned anything from all of this, It's that emotional starvation makes you do things you never thought you were capable of, not actions, necessarily, but thoughts, fantasies, longings, quiet rebellions in the mind. And when you've been half-loved for long enough, even the wrong kind of attention starts to feel like salvation. David and I are rebuilding. Slowly. Awkwardly. Some days, we talk. Not small talk, but the raw, ugly stuff. He's learning how to ask questions that don't lead to solutions. I'm learning how to speak before I explode. We go on walks now, even if we don't hold hands. Sometimes we just walk beside each other, in silence, breathing the same air. And that counts for something. He still touches me. Less often, more gently. Not as a gateway. More like a reminder. I'm still learning how to respond. Some days, I don't want to be touched. Other days, I ache for it. And Jordan? He leaves for college this fall. We've kept our distance, even though nothing technically happened. He's a good kid. And I'll always care about him, just not the way I thought I might, for that brief, strange second when I let myself enjoy the way his eyes lingered. It passed. But it changed me. Not because of what I felt, but because of what it revealed. I used to think marriage would make me feel secure. That being chosen once would mean being seen forever. But now I know the truth, you have to keep choosing each other. Every day. Even when it's inconvenient. Even when it's easier to scroll past one another in your own home. And if you stop seeing the person you love, stop wondering what's behind their silences or why they've started to shrink, you don't lose them all at once. You lose them slowly. In inches. And sometimes, they notice it before you do. Sometimes they go looking for themselves in places they shouldn't. Sometimes they come back. Sometimes they don't. I'm still here. I don't know what we'll be in a year. I don't know if this will last, or if we'll quietly become polite roommates who water plants and split bills. But I know myself better now. I know that I need more than duty and routine. I need presence. Curiosity. Words that reach me. And I need to be someone who can offer that in return. Desire isn't about sex. It's about feeling known. And maybe, just maybe, that's what all of us want, more than anything. To be looked at. And liked. Not for how we serve. Not for how we stay. But for who we are when no one's watching. Even if that moment only lasts a second. Even if no one ever speaks of it again. It matters. Because it reminds us, we are still here.